But I think there is a more important thing. The reward of excellence is, I don't think it's excellence. I think it's what you have to become to achieve excellence in the first place, right? It requires a different kind of a person for us to become, for us to be able to gain excellence at what we do, right? And excellence is like, there's a cartoon where the shark is saying to his son, son, being a shark requires a 24/7/365 commitment. You have to be a shark all day long, right? So being excellent is not a one-time or the other thing. Typically, what I have seen is people who are excellent at one thing, who have cultivated a habit of excellence in one thing, typically tend to be excellent at multiple things they do, that they set their mind to. Because it's a culture, it's a habit that comes about where at every point, at everything you do, you just want to make sure that you do a good job. Not for others, but for yourself, because before your name goes on, the quality goes in, as the saying says, it's because it's just the way you are. Right? And ultimately, we believe that this same refrain of it's a process and it's not an outcome is there. It's been referred by multiple people. There's no beginning and there's no end. There's just this infinite passion for life that goes. And typically, this sometimes, when a lot of us in various things that we see, whether in companies or in individual life, we find a lot of problems. Day in and day out, I wake up every morning and there are a whole bunch of problems, right? But as long as you have the time and you have the patience, I think all human power comes from the compound of time and patience to be able to achieve that. Right? So in terms of engineering excellence, how does one engineer excellence in organizations? These rules that we have found out may not apply to all, may not apply in many situations, but in general we think they transcend place and space and time, right? I think one thing is, it is inevitable that as leaders, they cast long shadows in organizations, as they say. You're very influential. Whether you like it or not, people are observing you all the time. They're taking cues from you in terms of what you believe is important. They get inspired by you, in terms of what you do and what you don't do. That's a fact, right? But there is a danger in being this all-pervasive force, all-pervasive, this driver of this organization. If you set out to be that, I think these organizations have very limited ability to grow as companies. Because if you do that, then you become the growth actually bottleneck for the company overall. So they say, I go back 2,000 years to a quote from a Chinese philosopher who said, the best leader is one whose presence is not known. Right? The next is one who is loved, the second is one who is feared, and the worst is really the one who is despised by the organizations. Right? So the key here is, how can a leader who casts a long shadow, how can his presence not be known? What sense does it make? It makes sense because you have created an environment, you have recruited the right kind of people, it's not always easy, where they perform, they gain excellence, and they are motivated enough, they are empowered enough, not because they do things, not because they are trying to impress you, not because they are afraid of you, but because they find empowerment and joy and satisfaction in their own right. When you create that environment, I think you get to an organization that is in generally happy and achieving organization overall. Right? And for that, you got to create a culture where you don't put yourself out to be this ultimate position of authority, right? Where you are one among them, as the previous speaker has said. You are along with everybody, trying to create the culture and trying to create this one. Right? And the most important thing, I think, oftentimes, perhaps we in India are more guilty than others. We tend to create organizations that march to our orders, to our instructions, right? And oftentimes, I think that's perhaps a huge mistake of this inflexibility of organizations to evolve, because everything depends upon you, right? So I think the best thing that we can do as organizations is to really get people who are independent thinkers. But there's a problem with independent thinkers is they don't listen to you all the time, right? Is you got to cajole, you got to argue, you got to reason out. You can never issue an edict, I want this done because I am saying so. You can't do it, right? Because they don't follow orders, right? But those are the kind of people who will gather force for the organization and to grow from that, right? And how do you find these people? I think, in our experience, you look for 5 I's. One is, first thing you look for is intellect, right? This hunger to learn, this curiosity to acquire knowledge, and the ability to get better. Because, as I was saying to somebody else, the empires of the future are just empires of the mind, right? The moment you find a guy who listens to stupid music on iPod, then read a nice book, just move on, right? Because you have to read, right? You have to learn, constantly learn, and that's the first thing. Second thing is look for people who have got a proclivity for action. People who want to get things done, do things even before you ask them to. Third, no substitute. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you are a neurosurgeon or whether you are a CEO, it doesn't matter who you are, right? That hard work and the capacity for hard work, sustained, focused work is key. Fourth, integrity. Simple rule, the guy does the same thing, whether you are looking, anybody is looking or is not looking. That's integrity, right? And finally, the interpersonal skills, the ability to pull together teams of people and make them do, because over time, your individual contribution becomes less important than the contribution of the people who you have assembled under you. That becomes your crowning achievement, right? And in organizations, anywhere else, anywhere you go in the world, people look for 3 things, and 3 4-letter words, right? They are work, love, and hope, which is one, is they are doing something that will make them better people, better professionals, and they enjoy the work they're doing because it is enriching. Second, they look for environments where they feel appreciated for the contributions they make, they feel loved for the value they add, and they feel good about themselves. And finally, this is very important, is that they believe they are part of a team that is going to win. This part of a team for whom the future is going to be better, tomorrow is going to be better than it is today, right? 3 things that people look. It doesn't matter where you go, right? And your job as you grow, as we all go along, our job as managers is not to make people under us comfortable. That's a mistake, right? I think we have to make sure they are uncomfortable all the time. That is, you push them into zones of discomfort, not through harshness, but with a lot of love, right? And the zones of discomfort is you're always pushing them to do better things, bigger things, more challenging things, audacious things, great things, right? And interestingly, they will thank you for it at the end of the day, because they'll say, from him I learned, or from her I learned things, right? And 8 planks of excellence in our things. Obsession with an